we are different from a lot of other shops is that we're not a one brand shop. We take it seriously and we really have fun with it at the same time, right? We take it seriously in the sense that we do it right and we make sure that you're going to enjoy the product and that it's going to last you a long time. But at the same time, we help you come up with the quirkiest solutions for whatever you want to use it for, and it's really fun. And yeah, we do lighting. We do, like I said, the battery banks and full electrical there. We do armor, whether it's sliders or bumpers, whether you go with a Jackery or you go with a build, it just really comes down to what makes you comfortable, what to get you outdoors. That's how we.
Are you into four-wheeling, camping, and exploring? How about off-road racing like mud bogs, short course wheel-to-wheel racing, or even desert races? Well, you've come to the right place. Welcome to 4x4 Canada podcast. My name is Wes, and I've been four-wheeling since I was 6 weeks old. I have over 20 years experience in 4x4 shops, many more than that in the off-road racing, and a lifetime of exploring the backcountry across Canada. Every week we bring you a new guest where they give you their perspective on the industry. We discuss everything from four-wheeling, overlanding, every form of off-road racing across this great country, as well as we talk to Canadian manufacturers and 4x4 shops. Just a quick reminder that if you're looking for more episodes, you can find all of our episodes on 4x4canadapodcast.com or your favorite podcast sharing platform. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at 4x4canadapodcast.com. Now let's get to the show. When you think of Toronto, overlanding is not the first thing that comes to your mind. Well, it turns out that a lot of the GTA folks like to escape the big city and go camping and exploring. Our guest today owns an overland and camping store in Toronto that is full of all top quality gear that you could need. Mike, welcome to the 4x4 Canada podcast.
Thank you very much, Wes. I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited. This is going to be great. So before we get too deep, got a couple little things I just want to mention. To the listeners, if you enjoy the 4x4 Canada podcast and you get value from it, please share it with your friends or someone you think will enjoy it as well. And also, I want to thank Rob from the Quesnel 4x4 Club for the hoodie that I'm wearing today. We did an interview with Rob back in September about the off-road races that the club puts on. And if you're in Western Canada and into the Ultra 4 and the hardcore off-road racing, you got to check out the group in Quesnel, British Columbia. They also put on a few mud bogs as well. It's always a great time up there. And once again, thanks for the hoodie, Rob. I really appreciate it. So, Mike, Red Bear Outdoors is that overlanding outfit in Toronto. You carry top-of-the-line gear and rooftop tents. Listeners can find you at redbearoutdoors.ca right. And as Red Bear Outdoors on Facebook and Instagram. As I mentioned off air, I'm really trying hard not to say Red Beard because that's a local brewery that I love here in town. So if I do say Red Beard Brewery, then just ignore it.
That's all cool with me. And hopefully someday we'll have Red Beer Outdoors and do our own brew.
There we go. So how did Red Bear Outdoors start and where did the awesome name come from? There's got to be a story behind that.
I wish it was a fantastic story, but it's not overly exciting, but there is a story, a little bit of it. So basically for us, camping has always been, what we enjoy, like my wife and I especially. And we we've always been portagers. We're in Ontario, right? Portaging is huge. This is kind of the way to go camping out here and backpacking and stuff. And did that for many years, of course, same as everybody else, and started noticing the whole overland trend picking up. Right. And noticing how comfortable a rooftop tent could be instead of us hauling all of our gear on our backs or in our canoes, change that up to a vehicle and try something different. So got into digging it all and whatever. And at the time got really excited about Tepui tents because that was, back then that was pretty much the number one for soft shells. I think it was Tepui and CVT. Right. Yeah. And now, of course, Tepui's been bought out by Thule. But, anyways. So realized that in Ontario, there's nobody that sold anything like it, right? Like to get a Tepui tent, it was either we go to the US or we go to one of the BC suppliers and have it shipped all the way to Ontario, which seems ridiculous, right? Massive, huge amount of area to explore, tons of people. And it's like, why the heck do we not have something like this here? So we thought, hey, let's try and do a little kind of side business, whatever, and start supplying these things. And so we imported a whole bunch of Tepui tents and got started from there. And at the beginning, it was literally like driving out to folks and meeting them in parking lots and displaying a rooftop tent. And, it's like, I remember one time we were parked outside of a Canadian Tire and the fire truck was just passing nearby, and they were like, "Oh my God, this is so cool." So they all pull over. All these firefighters jump out and start climbing all over the tent while I'm there with a potential customer, and they're like, "Oh yeah, now one of these firefighters is going to buy you." I'm like,
Exactly.
Yeah, if they buy it, hell yeah, I will. Yeah, and in terms of the name, so everybody, like a lot of my friends, always just joke that and call me a bear, and literally that's where we got with it. Our little camping truck is a red GMC Canyon, and we thought, okay, well, let's put a couple of things together here. We take it everywhere. It's by then we were doing a lot of adventures using the truck before we even got into the selling, and I was like, okay, well, I love bears. They're an outdoorsy animal. They represent the Canadian wilderness, especially. And more of a logistical perspective, I didn't want to get caught up with somebody looking up, grizzly bear or brown bear or black bear or whatever, and just finding it online, just more search results. So I went, well, hang on, we don't have red bears, so let's call it Red Bear Outdoors, right? And we came up with a whole bunch of different names. That was how we settled on this one. And it was the three of us, Will, who's my friend, and Augustina, who's my wife, that came up with this together, did our initial start and have been working together ever since. Yeah, that's our kind of kickoff story.
No, it works well. I mean, that's what I'm finding is a lot of people sort of start in it as a side business, but it's something they were looking for a product and they couldn't really find it accessible. So they thought, okay, maybe I can make it or I can import it, whether it be something like bumpers or rooftop tents or whatever, right? Sliders. And they thought, okay, well, I can, do a side business, and then it grows into a full-time business. So it's not easy. Kudos to you guys. It's a big leap and a lot of hard work, but it's worth it, right? So
100%.
Yeah.
It's a passion project in a way, right? It's a thing of love.
Yeah.
In the sense that, lots of work goes into a small business. Some folks might not realize it, but that's the reality of it, right? Especially when you're starting out, especially in the earlier days or when you're growing fast, right? Many 3 a.m. nights still to this day. Let's put it that way. Right. So you gotta keep up, and you gotta stay ahead of the game and make sure that you have the latest information, the latest products, etc., and you're helping customers and all that. It takes time, right? And I think in the beginning it was definitely as part of the whole side gig or whatever, it was definitely nowhere near as hectic. At the time, we would take pre-orders from some folks, and we'd stock a few of the most commonly purchased, which was at the time, funny enough, the ruggedized coconut from Tepui, which caught me by surprise. I would have thought it would have been the basic one, but everybody was buying the ruggedized, and I was like, cool. I mean, it's a fantastic tent. That's what I started with myself. And we would literally get an order from Tepui, and shipping them over here was insane. You could not possibly make it worthwhile to ship it over here. So we would have them ship it to Buffalo and then drive down ourselves with a trailer and pick it all up and then hop it over the border through customs. And like at that point, we would literally do our own customs and figure out how everything works, because paying a couple $100 was insane at the time, right? So had to figure that out. Had to figure out how to pass as a commercial vehicle, because yes, I'm in a little pickup with a gigantic trailer off the back, but I'm pulled up right next to all these semis at the border, and it's a pretty funny sight, for the most part. But yeah, that was the early days.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize how much work customs can be. I mean, that's probably 10-15% of my full-time job is doing custom stuff, and you don't realize how much work is involved. It's incredible. So let's talk about the rooftop tents. You guys carry a few different brands now. You've obviously got the Pui, which has been bought out by Thule.
Yep.
So you got the Thule Tepui, and then you've also got the iCamper, which is another top of the line Alucab and Treeline. Yep. So Treeline, I think, is for those people that don't know, I love the Treeline name because they are a Canadian company, and they actually have a made in Canada tent out now as well. Yeah.
The only one out there.
Yes. So I can't wait to get the guys on the podcast, and hopefully I can just pop across those Rocky Mountains and do a video interview with them in person and get a little tour.
Meet in person, right? We just had Luke over. He joined us for the Sportsman Show.
Cool.
Flew in. So, that was fun being able to finally chat in person versus, we've
Yeah.
had so many phone calls over the last, like, I don't know, 3 or whatever, however many years. And now it's like, oh yeah, hey buddy, I recognize your
Yeah.
voice. Didn't recognize your face, but I recognize your voice 100%.
Yeah,
We had a good time
exactly.
at the show together. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I've got a few friends that have the tree line tents, and they just rave about them nonstop. But like I say, yeah, I do want to hop across. Hopefully this summer I can hop across those Rocky Mountains and go for a visit with them, because I definitely want to see their new Made in Canada tent for sure. So, and they got a couple neat things coming down the pipeline too. So it's going to be interesting this year with them.
Oh, totally.
And
Yeah,
then
he was giving me some sneak previews for the future, and I'm like, oh, I'm excited. I'm excited, man. Let's see more, especially made in Canada.
yeah,
Um,
and then I mean, iCamper is another great, very well known name, and I've got
yep.
some friends who run the iCamper, and they're hard to beat in regards to quality and that as well too. So say somebody comes into the shop and says, "I'm interested in rooftop tents, but I know nothing about them." How do you get them into a product that suits their needs and their budgets and their wants?
Yeah, for
What are
sure.
sort of the steps on that?
So we actually have, like, not a written, but sometimes in terms of a written, because we'll get an email, and saying, hey, I don't
Yeah,
really know what I want.
yeah,
So I do have a few draft emails to pull from, but I usually, there's about like 7, I think, questions that get to the point of what a person needs. Number one thing I'll call out is, like, we are different from a lot of other shops, is that we're not a one brand shop. Right.
mm-hmm.
A lot of you'll see this in the
Yeah,
US, especially. A lot of the companies will cling with a specific one brand. And yes, there's benefits to that, of course. But when we started this out, we wanted to change the way the game is played, kind of thing, at least in Ontario here, from what we see. And that applies to off road shops as well, right? To how you walk into an off road shop often, I hate to say it, but like you feel a little intimidated if you don't know what you're talking about, right?
yeah, yeah,
And there's sometimes a stigma that folks might expect a customer to already know what they want, and we try to get rid of that essentially with our store and say to people, number one, all of my team, everybody is a proper camper and overlander. Like, everybody has done massive trips. Everybody's camped their whole life. Like, we've all done cross Canada trips, like Arctic Ocean and all that. A couple of the guys have done all over the US. Henry, one of our guys, has been to Baja several times, and like all over North America, right? So we speak from experience. We speak from the heart. We speak from experience. And
I think that's key. That's a big thing, right? So I mean, you are obviously going to have things that you like about certain brands and certain tents, but you can put that personal feelings or that personal experience into what you're selling. That's huge.
exactly. And it's like, until you feel it and try and actually live out of the damn thing for for a couple of weeks, then you really learn what you like and what you don't like and what actually impacts a person. And
Yeah,
so what we try to get at with people is to sell them what they need. We don't push a particular brand. We don't push for the cost of it or whatever, for the price, which, in some ways is detrimental to ourselves. Less profit from that, of course. But I'd much rather have somebody walk away happy and then come back and tell a friend and say, hey man, like, these guys actually got me what I wanted, not what they wanted. So the way we start off with rooftop tents and is essentially figuring out, one is often what they're driving, because half the time that'll solve, or not solve, but it'll eliminate a lot of options, right? Just sheer size and weight alone. So what they're driving, what are their intentions, right? Are they planning to go to a provincial park, and that's pretty much it? Or are they going to start hitting up some basic crown land, a couple of forestry roads, etc.? Or are these folks going to be, bushwhacking and rock crawling and all that, or doing proper cross Canada expeditions up to the ocean, right? Up to the Arctic Ocean, to Tug. And so we try to find out what their use case is going to be and what so vehicle use case, how many people are going to be sleeping in it, of course, right? The size needs to be figured out. And then from there is how frequently they would be using it. Nowadays, it used to be that we would kind of stop there and then try to narrow it down further. But nowadays, we also have to figure out, do you want soft shell or hard shell? And it's becoming a much more balanced and almost hard shell side market. I will say I've noticed that over the last year is a lot of the soft shell tents no longer sell as much as they used to. It used to be that they were number one sellers for us, right? Like, it would be nothing but soft shells every single day. Nobody wanted to pay for a hard shell. Now, I think as it's become normalized in the industry, and a lot of the big brands out there, like all the car manufacturers like Toyota, Jeep, and hell, Ford nowadays, and Land Rover, everybody, right? They're all jumping onto the overland bandwagon, let's call it that. And making it normalized for the general population. It's not just the hardcore, overlanders that do this anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I find folks are much more open to being able to move up to something like an iCamper versus an original Thule, where there's like a $3,000 price difference, right? and it is what it is, right? But so we try to figure out those couple of criteria, the soft shell versus hard shell. We try to explain to them, here's the difference between them, here's kind of the benefits versus the pros versus the cons. And we had like 1,000 of these conversations during the Sportsman show last week. So this is really fresh in my head. Yeah. And with all that, you try to then narrow it down to sizing, I think, is often a quick determiner. So like we'll get, okay, are you going to do 2 people? If you're on a budget and you've got 2 people and you're not over 6 feet tall, a Thule Air is fantastic because, and I mentioned the height just because of the length of the unit.
Right.
Because you get into a tent for less than $2,000, but it's still a good quality tent that'll last you, right? Versus like there's, some other tents out there that are bigger, but they'll cost less than 2,000. And I'm like, you're going to replace it next year. Right. But so let's say that would be one particular scenario for a person. A lot of customers come out with like Subarus and RAV4s, for example, right? In those scenarios, we can push up a little bit in the scale of the tent, and we start considering roof weights and how much the vehicle itself can handle, right? So a lot of the time with those vehicles, you're kind of limited to the Yakima Thule bars. So you're looking at 165, sometimes 200 pounds max. But in reality, it kind of puts you into the, let's say, the new Thule Approach or the old Thule Otanis, which are great tents for that size. The Tree-Line Tamarack is a good one. That's kind of a 3-person, we call it a 3-person camping tent. And
is it a real 3-person? No. That's one question of what.
Just like everything with camping sizes, right? Like every tent, whether you're ground tent, backpacking, or portaging or whatever, 3 people means really 2 and like a backpack, right?
Yeah.
or whatever, 2 and a dog, 2 and a baby, right? Things like that. Yeah. And then if their vehicle can take it, we offer them a hard shell as well, right? And are you guys interested in the iCamper? And at that point, you can show them, okay, because in our showroom, part of the benefit of having a showroom is you can come and feel these things. You can come and touch them and see them firsthand and actually lie down inside the thing and realize, oh yeah, this, to your point, this 3-person tent is really just me and my wife kind of thing. And one of the kids, the other one's going in the annex.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's the benefit of having this place that people can come and actually experience.
I think that's huge because, if you're dropping $3, $4, $5,000, you actually want to see the thing. You want to crawl inside it. Is there enough headroom if it's a wedge style or, all that kind of stuff, right? So I think being able to look at these different brands and feel them and touch them. And to me, I can't imagine making a purchase of $3 or $5,000 or whatever on something that I've never actually seen. I can't imagine buying something like that offline myself.
But it used to.
Just might.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what it used to. And for a lot of people and it's tough. You really become the faith there, right? And I think you need to be able to have that place where you can come and see it and feel it and lie down on the damn thing.
100%.
The biggest one is people ask us questions, right? Like we love, especially those that are starting out, we love giving help and just telling them, hey, these particular provincial parks are fantastic for what you're after, or it's like for your family, however many, whatever your family looks like, this park's better than that park or whatever, right? Or if you're really eager to get out and actually get past the structured camping of the front, whatever we call it nowadays, front side camping, you want to get past provincial and national parks and you want to do Crown and you want to do et cetera. We help people and try to help them find locations and places to go or groups to join and all that. And just try to educate.
I think that's the biggest thing is trying to educate, the pros and cons and like you say, and where to go and that. The tenting or camping in the winter seems to be a big thing in the last couple of years. It just seems to have exploded, at least out in BC. I think you're seeing it out there in Ontario as well. And is there any tents that are better, say, for winter camping or ones that have insulation for winter camping? What would you recommend for winter?
From an insulation perspective, so iCamper, for example, and Thule both offer insulation kits that you can buy and literally strap in on the inside of the tent. I like to tell people, and this is not exact math, but I would akin it to an R4 value equivalent. If I had to,
Yep.
if I had to take an estimate on the insulation rating, obviously it won't make you super comfortable, but it'll definitely keep things, above zero.
Yeah, it'll help
At
out.
the end of the day, I always tell customers, number one is a very, very good sleeping bag. I warn them about the whole comfort versus survival rating on a sleeping bag, on the temperature rating. And it's important to have a good bag, because warming up a bag is a lot easier than warming up 4 massive walls, right? Especially if you got a big iCamper or a big redwood from Treeline or whatever, right? Massive tents, right? They're basically apartments. At least downtown here we are. Hey, that's the studio apartment, 2,800 a month. And yeah, so insulation wise, you've got, like I said, Thule and iCamper. Treeline doesn't do insulations for their walls. Blue Cap has a little bit of insulation built into the actual frame, so top and bottom.
Right.
But they don't do installation kits otherwise either. If you really want to get comfortable, diesel heaters, right?
Yeah.
Like we sell Planar, which is, a competitor essentially to Espar and Desto, right? Which are the more bigger brands. So this is not like the knockoff Amazon heaters right? This is actually something you're investing in, and it will stay with you for a long time. And they do have a nice kit that has a portable unit, essentially, right? That is water resistant, ready to go. Everything's already built for you. You literally add the diesel, turn it on, pump the hose into your tent. You're good to go, right? So if you really want to be comfortable and warm, that's the way to go.
A friend of mine has a Planar heater. It's just, right out of the box. It just works. You don't have to fiddle it. You don't have to make a case. You don't have to do anything, right? So they're a little bit more than your Chinese off-brand heaters, but like you say, you're going to have it next year, and you don't have to do any screwing around. It just works, right? So going back to something you did mention earlier, let's go back to the sleeping bags. And I know that's not really your guys' forte kind of idea, right? But a lot of people don't realize that the ratings on the sleeping bags, there's this, like you mentioned, a survival temperature and a comfort temperature, for lack of better terms. Maybe if you can fill in some of our listeners on the differences or how sleeping bags are actually rated.
Yeah. So basically, and I think digging into this, I'll have to remember what the actual titles are exactly, but there are a lot of the bigger brands nowadays, like MSR, for example, or Thermarest. They'll do all their testing with the, whatever it is, European subcert or other agency, but there's a North American one as well. They do slightly different testing, but regardless, what they come down to is you have a comfort rating and a survival rating, right? And so what you normally see in those big numbers where you buy in a bag at, I don't know, Walmart or Canadian Tire or whatever, you're going to see a massive minus 17 on that bag, right? And you're like, right. Oh, yeah, I'm good to go. The reality is that minus 17 is the temperature rating that will keep you right. It will not be a comfortable sleep. You will frankly probably not even sleep at all, right? If it actually hits minus 17. What you will see is that minus 17 rated bag, quote unquote, will end up being like you can look at, there's usually a little chart hidden away somewhere in the back, or some of them, the cheaper ones won't even have them, right? The real comfort rating will be like 0 degrees. Right. And that means you're getting a full night's sleep only in 0 degrees or higher, right? And we're talking Celsius, of course, right? And that's something that people really, really need to keep in mind when they're purchasing. I always tell folks the reason we didn't get into sleeping bags is like, because we carry a lot of the same brands. All the major bags are made by, but I always figure MEC, like Mountain Equipment Co-op, is just such a fantastic resource for sleeping bags. Their people know their stuff, and they always have so many different choices that you can choose from. So I'm not going to try to fight that. I mean, right, what's the point? And I tell people, like, part of the whole education thing, go to this place. This will help you figure out what's a good bag for you, for your purposes, for your needs. If you're going to do winter camping, you need a very, very, very good bag to keep you actually comfortable and actually sleeping, right? So that comfort rating is what you're looking for when you're looking at the bags. And once you start getting into things to more, a little heftier price, but much more high quality bags, like, again, MSR, take a look at their site. They will actually detail everything, exactly what their testing criteria were, what the heat escaping ratio is and whatever, right? But they'll go through all that and show you that, okay, this is our comfort rating. This is our survival rating, right? And comfort is what you really need to be hunting after.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people don't realize that. Like you say, they look at, whether it be Canadian Tire or something like that, and they'll see a minus 17 or a minus whatever. And they don't realize that is that's the survival and that's not the comfort. So that's why I wanted to mention that, because I didn't even know that until, probably 3-4 years ago. So, and I do a lot of camping in that. So I almost kind of found it by accident. So
Survived that.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. So hopping back to the rooftop tents, people obviously need something to carry that rooftop tent. And I know you guys carry a few different brands of racks, with basically the frontline rack is your main one. And that front line is obviously very good quality. So
Front runner.
front runner, sorry. Yeah, the front runners.
Front line, and I'm like, I don't care. The front runner.
All right, sorry about that. Front runner.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Very, very, very good quality. So on the trucks, you also carry racks from Overland Racks Ontario as well, right? So I've been talking to Sean. Sean and I talked a while ago, and timing wasn't working out. So, we've been talking. We got to hook back up and get him on the show, because I think he's got some really neat modular racks, and the quality, from what I've seen and what I've heard from other people, Overland Racks Ontario, he's definitely got some good products. So
that's it. That's our go-to rack for anybody that has a pickup, is get Sean's rack. Get the Overland Racks Ontario rack. We've got 2 of them on display in our shop with rooftop tents sitting on them, and we have them for rent for people. We have them on older racks. There were like previous iterations of his that are sitting in the yard still holding up tents for us. No, it's a fantastic product that he's put together, and again, it's all made here, right? It's all truly local, and the new ones that are all aluminum, it's a fantastic product, right? I mean, you get one rack and it'll work for you, whether you've got a Tacoma and then next year you want to move up to a Tundra, no problem. Spread it out, you have to go. It still works regardless of what tent you want to move up to, whatever, right? So it's great.
Yeah, I think he's really done his research from what I saw. For everything I've seen, he's done his research and is making it work. Now, you mentioned that you rent them as well. Are you guys renting rooftop tents as well?
We rent everything. So it's something we've gotten into. Like, we started nibbling at this a couple of years back, and offering a tent here and there. Last year it became a lot more popular. This year we're actually pushing it, and we've got full-size iCampers for rent. We've got mini iCampers for rent. We've got like 4 different soft shells that you can rent. We've got ground tents from Gazelle for rent. We've got fridges for rent, Jackeries, lights, solar panel, like anything you need to actually get out there, or you're just looking to try gear. Like, before you're putting down $6,000 on an iCamper, feel free to try one, right?
Yep.
Come by, we'll mount it on your vehicle, take it camping. I mean, hell, take it to your house and park in your driveway and camp out there. It gives you an experience of how it feels to sleep in one of these things, right? Which is leaps and bounds different from just seeing it in front of you, right? And actually being able to sleep on the damn thing. Yeah. So we rent all kinds of stuff, and then part of it was we needed a way of renting to people that have trucks but don't have racks, right? And we could have gone with something like a Thule attachable rack, like the Exporter that they make, and we have those too. But the Overland Racks Ontario rack is just, it's a beefy unit that supports every single weight of our tents, right? No matter which tent we go with, this rack can take it. And the best thing is about his setup with the newest rack that he's introduced last year is that like I said, the size is expandable, right? It's a quick, just I loosen up some bolts, spread it out, shorten it, whatever I need to do, depending on the size of the truck, right? Which means I have one rack that fits every truck bed. It's fantastic.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Right? You only have to inventory 1 or 2 part numbers, right? For all the trucks. So that, I think, is a great idea. And I really love the idea of you guys renting out tents and other products too, right? I mean, not everybody necessarily wants to have a rooftop tent for the full year if they're only going away for 1 week or something like that. But also, it's a great way to hook people in.
Hopefully,
exactly, right? But I mean, it's that's another option as well too, right? But I think it's really neat. A lot of people, they might only have 1 week to go camping and don't go out every weekend like a lot of us, right? So,
or they're Canada day-long weekend or something, right?
Right? Yeah.
So, whoever's listening, give us a shout if you're looking for a part.
I think it's a really neat idea. That's great. So another option that you carry is the AluCab wedge style campers and canopies. Not like I need any other reasons to want one more, but can you tell our listeners a little bit more about them?
Yes, sweet units. Honestly, so Alucab is one of those like staples of overlanding, right? These guys have been around for 20 years. They kind of defined the style of tent and camper. They're out of South Africa, and I mean, they beat the hell out of these things over there, all over. And I think they make a good promo tagline, and I can't remember the exact wording, but they say, "We started with our gear designed for rental trucks, doing cross, like, you're going to Botswana, you're going all over there, Namibia, and all of these countries, and I mean, you beat the hell out of these vehicles on massive washboard roads or huge potholes, right, and everything. And I've been to South Africa, potholes ahoy, but no, and it's like plenty of places to really treat your equipment roughly and to test it out. And like I think it was what was it, Top Gear, that they said there's no better off-roader than a rental, right? Because you don't care about making it home. So
Exactly.
Test your products. And so all aluminum, everything, right? I mean, that's their thing. So whether you're getting a canopy, which is, and they call them canopies, but it's more like a cap, what we call caps here, right? And I kind of, to give somebody an example to how to better understand it, think of a contractor cap here in Canada, right, or North America, where you would have either a steel or stainless steel or aluminum cap on the back of the pickup truck, and it's reinforced, it's much stronger, it's meant to carry a lot of weight on the roof, right? And then, so that's the beauty of their canopies, is they're aluminum, they're fully welded together, they're heavy duty, and fully watertight, and you're able to throw whatever tent you want on top, right? No problem whatsoever with weight capacity. So fantastic units. And then of course the campers. Like the campers, everybody loves the campers. I've got one. It's glamping, basically. Let's put it at that. Let's be honest here. I joke about it with friends, and I made a point of it at the Sportsman show. Actually, funny enough, because we put my truck as the camper demo, and I have our electrical system, because we do like everything electrical custom for people. So with the electrical system, we set up my truck, and then I put in an espresso machine. Right. Like I'm a big coffee guy, and I love Nespresso for the ease of use of it, and the quality of the coffee that comes out of it. And I always joke that, I go to campsites and beautiful parked on a lake somewhere in Eastern Ontario or Northern Ontario, and it's super quiet and there's birds chirping and whatever, and 7 a.m, all of a sudden some guy like me comes out and pushes a button, and it goes, super loud espresso machine with the inverter kicking in and everything. But it certainly makes for a very comfortable experience in the morning,
as long as you're enjoying it, right?
No, it's fantastic. The campers are very high quality, again, all aluminum, stainless steel hardware. These units are the base campers, are like for mid-size trucks and full-size trucks, like whether Tacoma or Tundra or Colorado and Silverado and Sierra and Canyon. Like I've got a Canyon. They've got them for the Gladiator now as well. That's one of our actually most popular ones now. It used to be the Tacomas. Now the Gladiators are definitely taking over. And so these units are semi-permanent installations, as we call them, because there's a whole bunch of mounting points attached to the truck. There's no modification to the truck itself. So ultimately, if you do want to sell it or something, we can take it off. It just takes a while. But yeah, everything is bolted in place, very, very sturdy. And then we seal every single gap, every single hole that you can find, including in the bed of the truck. And so the whole thing is, dust sealed and watertight. And then from there, it's sky's the limit, because it's an aluminum shell with the pop-up like the wedge style, where it goes like this, right? And then your whole tent section here with the bedding and the mattress. So that all comes in the base unit, but then within you build out as far as you want to take it. Some of our customers, they just want base model. They don't want it for anything else. They'll carry some plastic totes. Others, we build out cabinetry. Others, we build out massive electrical systems that will help them not only run an espresso, but also a blow dryer and a toaster oven all at the same time. And I've seen this. I mean, I've put this together for folks, and we have some really, really cool outputs that come out of these builds, and seeing every single one is very, very different. And really cool units for people.
Well, I think that's really neat that you guys are doing the installs yourself. I mean, I was going to ask earlier, obviously you guys install the rooftop tents or, install the campers and that, but knowing you guys get into the full electrical as well as some of the cabinet stuff is basically making it a one-stop shop for people.
That's our goal. That's our goal.
Yeah.
One-stop shop for folks. And whether it's to mount a basic rack for you or a rooftop tent, or it's, like I said, coming up with a fully custom electrical solution where you need 3 kilowatts of power on the road and you need solar, we've got the right connections for everybody. We've got an electrician to actually do the work. Right. So it differentiates us from a lot of folks that way. And we take it seriously and we really have fun with it at the same time. Right. We take it seriously in the sense that we do it right and we make sure that you're going to enjoy the product and that it's going to last you a long time. But at the same time, we help you come up with the quirkiest solutions for whatever you want to use it for, and it's really fun. And it doesn't have to be an alley cab either. Right. We do it for regular trucks, like whether it's for a Bronco or the new Broncos, for example, or for a Lexus GX 460 that just popped into my head right now that we did last summer for a whole bunch of lights outfits. Yeah, we do lighting. We do, like I said, the battery banks and full electrical there. We do armor, whether it's sliders or bumpers.
Okay.
Starting to get into wheels now too, actually. So eventually we're building it up and trying to expand the services naturally.
That's good to know, because I didn't realize you guys are getting into the armor and slowly building out from the other stuff. I thought you're more just the sort of overlanding and camping stuff. So that's really good to know, and for our listeners to know as well, that you guys are working towards being a full one-stop shop. So that's
if I could pass along one message about the shop itself, is that we're your full service solution, whether you're going camping in a van and you just want to get a couple of creature comforts, or you want to build a full expedition rig, like, we will help you with everything that you need.
Yeah, that's great. So there's obviously a big difference between somebody picking up a Jackery and going to a full build with an inverter and that. And myself, I want to go into something like the Cab eventually, but I don't really know if I really need to go to a full with an inverter and that, because I do have, in back my Tacoma, I do have an inverter already, but I've never actually used it. So this is maybe sort of a silly question, but what do people use the inverters for? And even the Jackeries, I haven't really seen much of a need myself, but maybe I'm just so old school and used to not glamping that, I'm just maybe I'm just too old school to get it, right? But what are some of the uses for going to like an inverter, like a Red Arc or whichever brand you guys carry? Why would somebody go to that kind of extreme?
Yeah, number one, I'm not going to call it old school. I'm going to say traditional camp. Yeah, so we've got everything from, depending on your budget, right? Everything from Renogy, Victron, Red Arc, and then when it comes to solar panels, it'll be like Samlax and Zamp and whatever you want, right? We actually work with another local company called the True Off Grid. So cool little small shop. They're great guys, and we source a lot of our solar panels through them, right? Mm-hmm. It's just they do good testing on the products that they sell, right?
I did see those on.
Yeah.
I saw them on your website.
So it's fantastic.
Yeah. So I do have a solar panel, the fold-up one that I bought off of a friend who probably bought it off of Amazon or something like that, right? But I've put it up a couple times to help my fridge, and that's where I could see something like that. I've got the Medic that I use, and so on a nice sunny day, if I'm out in the lake kayaking, I'll throw the solar panel up and help keep that charged while the fridge is working, and I'm out kayaking. I guess that's one of the options or one of the reasons, right? But I know there's obviously a lot more to go to, whether it be a Jackery or a full onboard system.
Totally, yeah. And sorry, let me actually get back to the question, I guess.
Yeah, sorry, I get sidetracked there.
Yeah, whether you go with a Jackery or you go with a build, it just really comes down to what makes you comfortable to get you outdoors. That's how we put it. Yeah. Right? It's like, if it means that your significant other is going to join you more often, guess what? You're going camping more often, right?
Yeah.
And if that means that you need to have a coffee machine or a blow dryer or whatever it may be like that, that's what it takes, right? And you make your family or your friends or whoever you want to join you comfortable, and that way everybody gets to enjoy the outdoors more. right? So
Yeah.
with moving up to something like a Jackery, it gives you a simpler plug and play solution, right?
Yeah.
Now they've advanced so much that honestly, in a lot of the cases, you don't even need a full electrical build out that's massive anymore. Like we actually have, I think it's a pretty fair split of how many of our customers have us put in the solutions to work with something like a Jackery or Blue Eddy or an EcoFlow versus how many want these, more heavy duty, robust build outs. If you're looking to do more kind of basic household appliances and you're looking at just having your laptop and your camera and your cell phones charged and just the lights on inside the camper, we'll build you the
Yep.
adapters that will go from the lights to the Jackery. We'll build all that for you. It's not a problem whatsoever. And you plug it in, and we'll even run some power to the back of the truck so that you could plug in from your truck and charge it while the truck's driving, right? So that it automatically kicks in, and it's great for that. And Jackery gives you that nice little solution. And whether you go with Jackery or EcoFlow or Blue Eddy, they all have their ups and downs, right?
Right.
Pros and cons.
Yeah.
Nothing truly wrong with going any which way on them. And yeah, basically plug and play solution is kind of the end result of why you would go with a Jackery. If you're looking for something that will grow with you or be able to handle more things in the future, and you think, okay, I'm going to build up to other stuff, whether, I was just talking with, and during the sportsman show, and then just this evening with my wife, I was like, well, why don't we switch to electrical cooking? Like anything heat related that requires electricity sucks so much power. It's insane.
Yeah. I was just thinking, I've got a friend that brings a griddle out, and that's an example I could think of. And then I was thinking, okay, maybe, camp lights on the outside of the vehicle, so I'm like, okay, yeah, you can see more uses there. Right. So it's like you say, I guess it all depends on how comfortable you want to be. Right. So.
Yep. And you could be that you need a little tiny 290 Jackery, which will literally just power your interior LED lights, and then a couple of cell phone charge. That's all you need. Or you want to move up and do your Red Arc Manager 30 system. Sorry, you want to do 400 watts of solar on the roof. You want to do 200 to 300 amps of lithium fully heated batteries because you're going camping in the winter, and you want to keep them going and working properly. We can build all that, and that's what some folks do, and especially in the type of system that kind of what I was mentioning before is that a system that you expect to grow bigger, to have more demands, especially if you've got more 12 volt demands. Which one interesting trend I've noticed recently is all the new iterations of like Jackeries and Blue Eddies and EcoFlows, they're all getting away from 12 volt plugs for whatever reason or another. Like they have tons of USB plugs, and then they have tons of 120 volt, which is like your household plugs, but they're losing all their 12 volt plugs, which they used to have like 3 or 4 of, and now they have one. And the newest gen, like what is it? I think the Jackery 3000 they just announced doesn't have a 12 volt plug at all. Like
really?
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
But anyways, new trend. So yeah, if you're building up massive lights, some of our customers, they have tons and tons of lights on the inside and the outside, right? It makes them feel safe, makes them feel comfortable, whatever it is, right? Or they just want to have fun and light up the whole night. I don't know, right? Whatever so, because you mentioned lights, so I was thinking about that. And like, you would want to run that off of a battery. You wouldn't want to run that off of your truck's battery because, it'll drain it in less than an hour, and then good luck starting.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I was thinking after I mentioned didn't see as much of use myself. I got thinking, well, maybe I could see, camp lights. I've been out with some of the guys that have camp lights, and maybe I just use everybody else's equipment too much.
No.
But
camp lights, fridges, all that stuff, right? Recharging all your battery banks, all your phones and cameras and all that stuff, especially if you're doing, if you're a YouTuber, for example, you need a ton of power, right? Constantly running a laptop and recharging
batteries and drone batteries and
exactly.
Yeah. So I can definitely see with that. So, and electric blankets. I was camping with a friend this winter, this fall, and had an electric blanket, and
those things burn through power too. Like I said, anything heat related. Funny enough, you mentioned that. Something pops to mind. It's like blankets and CPAP machines. They seem to be extremely, like, we get a lot of questions about CPAP machines, and it makes sense. People want to sleep comfortably, right? But yeah, that's a very commonly asked question: is how to power a CPAP, how to power.
Yeah, that's something I didn't think of that, and that's a very good point, because I yeah, a lot of people have CPAP machines these days.
Yeah.
And, if it makes your life a lot easier, then that's probably the way to go. Now,
White
can
struggle
you,
was.
yeah, I mean, exactly. Can you power a CPAP off of a Jackery, or are you better to go with something
Yeah.
in built in house? Okay.
No, you totally
Okay.
could. The things to keep in mind is essentially like there's some CPAPs that are more efficient than others, and there's
Right.
a new style. Somebody actually, a customer was telling me about that they're no longer a constant feed. They have sensors so that when the
Oh,
person stops having regular breathing, then they kick in and
right.
supply air, which means it consumes less power, right?
Yeah.
Essentially. But yeah, so basically, as with any other appliance, look on the back, look on the power brick, and see the little, a nice shiny sticker that they usually have that says, "Here's my wattage. Here's the voltage that I'm consuming it
Yeah.
at." And there's a little bit of math to do it, but you can honestly Google for a calculator if you have to.
Right.
And essentially, with that, kind of with the Jackery, for example, usually a 1000 onwards is kind of what you're looking for, especially if it's something you expect to run over a whole like 8 hours of sleep.
Yep.
The other thing to keep in mind is if you are running something like a coffee machine or a blow dryer or whatever the other references I was making earlier, those things have high spike power, right? So essentially they need a max amount of power for a couple of seconds while they heat things
Right.
up, heat up all those elements, right? And it's
Yeah.
like my Nespresso, I know that it needs 20 seconds of 1250 watts peak power, and then it drops to like nothing, right? So for that, a 1000 Jackery would not work because it was not capable of producing its built-in inverter. And this is going back to your question earlier of what's the use for the inverter, right?
Right.
So the
Yeah.
inverter would allow you to run a household appliance that is meant to run on only 120 volt power, like a typical 2 3 prong plug, whereas your power source is a 12-volt battery, right? So that's where the inverter kicks in and helps you out and allows you to do that. And so with this, if you wanted to run that coffee machine, I know that I need to get a Jackery that's 1500 watt, right? Because that's its maximum spike that it allows.
Exactly.
I build out my own system.
Right.
Either way.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
I saw on Facebook a while ago, you guys had a post about the Jackeries, and it was a Jackery 1000 and a Jackery 1000 Pro. What's the difference between those?
So Pro's the new one that they've released, and power levels are similar, but what they've changed with the Pro is they've changed the battery management system to allow it to have a longer lifetime, because like something that folks might not realize with batteries is they do have an end lifespan, right?
Yeah.
The more you use them, the more they do wear down. And one thing that some folks try to hold against Jackery is that they've been sticking with original style lithium batteries, whereas a lot of the other competitors have switched to the LiPo 4 or whatever it is, basically lithium phosphate batteries, which have a naturally longer number of cycles that they can spin through before they start losing how much of a charge they can hold. Right. So what Jackery has done is they've improved the software and they've improved on the battery itself while still using the original lithium, and now have a much longer lifespan on the Pros. The other thing they improved is the charge times. In some cases, they brought them down to almost a third of what it used to be. So if you plug in your Jackery 1000 Pro into your house, like your 120 volt, you can charge the thing up in a couple of hours, whereas it used to be 6 hours, right? So
that's a huge difference.
Yeah. And they can handle more solar input, for example, right? So you can wire up, like, that's where you see those really cool pictures that Jackery puts out. If they've got 6 solar panels light out, all running into one unit, which, a little excessive, but to each their own. And I'm like, at a certain point, just put up a massive panel on the roof, right? But yeah, and that's basically what the Pro series gets a customer, gets a person.
Right. Gotcha. Now, speaking of lithium batteries, I mean, electrical is not my forte. But if I'm going to say, put a winch on the front of my vehicle, and I was looking at, like, I've got the Dometic and maybe a couple other things, some lights and stuff like that, and looking at going to, say, a dual battery option, would I be better going to like a lithium style battery for that kind of stuff, and isolating it, the winch and the Dometic and the other things I do want to plug in, like my lights, like my camp lights, stuff like that? Be better off going to a regular car style battery, or going to like a deep cycle car battery, or going to a lithium?
Very honestly, very valid scenario, very, very common scenario a lot of people deal with. There won't be a right or wrong. There will be a matter of budget. I will say right up front, right?
Right.
Lithiums are expensive compared to
Yeah.
an old school AGM style battery. Very expensive in comparison, but they also give you a lot more use out of them, right? So like your
Gotcha.
easiest way to think about it is like a 100 ampere AGM battery. AGM batteries, you technically are not supposed to take them down below 50% capacity.
Right.
Otherwise they start dying. And not draining dying. I mean, literally like this battery just starts going bad. But you do it enough times, it goes bad, right? And
Right.
so you don't take them down below 50%. So with this massive block of a battery that weighs about 60 pounds, and no joke, I mean, like I ran AGM batteries for a long time myself, right? And I had a
Yeah.
Wolfpack
Yeah.
with two 100 amp AGM batteries that literally weighed over 100 pounds, right? And so you have this big block of a battery, but it's going to give you at most 50 amps, right? Whereas you grab a lithium that's slightly smaller battery, weighs a third of what that AGM battery is.
Yep.
And if it's 100 amps, it'll actually push 100, well, like let's say 95 or whatever, right? You probably shouldn't take it to zero either, but it'll get close to zero. It'll take it to like 2%, right? And before the system kicks in and starts saying, okay, warning, recharge me.
Right.
Now, going back to the scenario that you put forward there with a winch, this is one where it's like some folks say don't run the winch, some folks say do run the winch off of the main truck battery. I'm personally in the camp of running off the truck battery and make sure the truck is running when you're winching,
Right. Yeah.
because they do consume a lot of power. So the winch can easily drain through a house battery really quickly, and the recharge that's coming in from whether it's solar or anything else just won't be able to keep up. So if you're winching all day, running off the truck battery and the alternator, right, and just make sure the truck's running at the time. And then with everything else, though, with the Dometic, with the lights, yes, you could technically run it off of your truck battery if it's big enough, but it's much safer to run it off of a secondary, right? It's much safer to run it off of a isolated.
That's where that's where I'm thinking having, would be better to have a secondary battery for all that. So I still can start my vehicle in the morning if I do happen to drain it right down. And I did have, a couple problems with my Xterra. The factory plug-in wasn't as good a quality, and it did drain the battery sometimes. So after I changed it to a higher quality Blue C plug-in, then I stopped having those problems. But going to a second battery, would eliminate that concern or that scare of will it start in the morning.
Totally. Right? That's exactly it, right? When it comes down to it, it's like, am I going to be able to drive away in the morning after I've been running the lights and a fridge all night? And the reason I mention is it's doable. It is actually even personal firsthand experience. Like I used to, like I've got, like I said, a Canyon, and I put in a diesel sized truck starter battery inside of it because they are beefier. They're about 30% larger than capacity than the standard ones that the gassers get. And I used to be able to run, when that battery was new, for about 2 years from when I bought it, I could run my 75-liter Dometic. I could run a light bar, obviously not all night, but I could run a light bar for whenever I needed it. And obviously I had my Warren winch hooked in. I've got the truck itself, whatever other electronics we got going off of it, playing music, whatever. And the thing actually lasted. And if I didn't play with the lights and everything else, and it was just a fridge, I could leave the truck parked for 3 days in dead of summer, 30 degrees outside, 35 degrees outside, and the fridge would last for literally 3 days before it would shut itself off because the battery went low. Right. Wow. So like that's kind of speaking to Dometic as well. They're extremely efficient fridges. I love them. That's why we sell them. Right. They're amazing. But at the end of the day, it's math, right? It's like, so long as your battery has enough juice in it, has enough capacity in it to allow you to run the appliances, whatever it is, or lights or anything, you're good to go. But at the end of the day, you're kind of playing with fire if you're running off your truck battery. So be safe, set it up on an extra battery. If you want to save costs, just get another AGM, put it in the back. I know they are technically not lead acid, but I still wouldn't tip them over. They will eventually leak if you do leave them tipped over. But yeah. I mean, there's no harm in it. And even if it's just setting up a little Jackery to run your fridge instead, if you want something simpler that you don't have to think about at all or any kind of installation process, get yourself a little portable power unit.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely been one of my concerns. I haven't had any problems with the Tacoma since I bought it, last year, but it has been, in the back of my mind. And I do carry a portable booster pack, this little NOCO. Yeah, exactly. And they work amazingly well.
Yeah.
Yeah, they work really well. Now, going back to the Dometic, when you're stopped for the night, just before you go to bed or anything like that, do you keep the same temperature on all the time?
Yep.
Or do you, okay. So I know some people, knock it up a few degrees at night so it doesn't have as much draw, but I didn't really think it's worth doing it myself. So,
Yeah, no, I mean, you could if you wanted to, really, but I mean, at that point, number one, I'm not hooked into the truck battery anymore. So,
that's true.
And besides, regardless, your Dometic has a really, really good safety switch built in that will measure the voltage coming out of whatever battery you plug it into. And so, so it usually has three settings. Oh, not usually. It always has three settings, high, medium, and low sensitivity. And essentially, if you put it on its standard medium sensitivity, it kicks in at, I don't know, something like 13.5 volts. So your battery drops to a certain voltage. It means that, the battery's draining and the fridge will shut down. If you put it at high sensitivity, like basically as soon as the battery even starts thinking about reducing its power, it shuts down the fridge. And if you put it at low, you're kind of playing with fire a little bit, but it'll run for a lot longer. So the fridge will shut itself off before your battery dies out. So that is a good thing to not have to worry about, with a Dometic case or with an ARB. Like we do ARBs as well, great fridges too.
Yeah.
Some of the cheaper fridges is where you start losing that. And that's where a lot of folks don't realize that if they're buying something like, again, an Amazon style fridge, that you're paying $700 for it versus $1,400 for it. But a lot of the things like the efficiency, especially the efficiency, the compressors are what makes a difference. The safeties that are built in, just the quality of the electronics, honestly, and the insulation, all of these things. Sorry, I just saw an email from Overland Racks Ontario pop up on my screen. It just threw me off. All of these things actually contribute to why you're paying the extra premium, right?
Yeah.
It is what it is. Yeah.
Well, that's like anything, though. I mean, you look at whether it be a rooftop tent or a fridge or anything like that, you're paying more for a quality product, but it's product that's going to last you. The reason I went with the Dometic is because I'm going to have that for the next 5 years, 10 years, whatever it is. I've already been through, this is my second vehicle with it, right? So it's something that it was an investment is how I looked at it, was as an actual investment.
And it's going to stick around. And
exactly.
The nice thing with Dometic is they actually support the ability to repair, right? So they have a full parts catalog that you can find the part that you need if it's something that go wrong. Right. And a local dealer can get that part and actually install it for you, right? So we can help with that. And it's like plus the 5-year warranty. I mean, that just kicks everybody's butt in the industry. So
exactly.
I personally have a Dometic that I bought in that 75 liter that I mentioned I bought it in 2017. Used to sit in the back of the truck, completely exposed to the elements, like a year at a time. And the thing's still kicking. We bring it to every show. It's our shop fridge, and it's running all the time. Right. So
you can't go wrong with a Dometic, I think. I mean, it's worth it. And like I say, to me, it's an investment. I've actually got mine. I've got a access cab Tacoma. So I've got mine. I've built a shelf in the back. So it's right behind my driver's side seat. And it just sits there and
good to go.
Exactly. Well, because I wanted it easily accessible, and I didn't want to have it out in the bed of the truck, keep it away from the dust and the sun and all that, right? So it works out really well. It works out great. So sticking with the Dometic, do you guys carry other kitchen products, for lack of better terms?
Yeah, okay. They got really creative last year. They pulled out the stops, made some really nifty things. Honestly, I'm a huge fan of their little faucet. It is such a cool little addition for like, I don't know, whatever, $120, you get running water. And it doesn't matter what container you have. You don't have to buy their hydration jug or whatever it's called, right? It's you get the little faucet, you can throw the water line that comes with it into your jerry can or into your 3-gallon water jug that you bought at No Frills or whatever, right? And it's no problem. It's lithium, it's USB recharge, you push a little button, you got running water. It's awesome. A friend of mine's got one, and he actually built it in part of a slide out, and it works out really, really well. And they've really, like you say, they really introduced some really neat products the last year and a half, and it's impressive, really impressive for sure. So knowing that you guys do that, and you guys do also do carpentry, especially with the alu cabs and stuff like that,
you can build a full project or a full thing, a full setup for somebody, right? So
Yeah, totally. And I mean, it's like right now we're throwing in a 12-volt SureFlow pump into my truck. So when I'm not using a little tiny Dometic, I'm going to have 3.5 gallons per minute of water that I can blow through if I really wanted to. I mean, my tank's only 40 liters, so I'll probably go through that in about 3 minutes. But the option
is that and you guys carry the front runner rack, so you guys also carry the front runner tanks and stuff like that as well too?
Yes, yeah. I just put in a front runner order a few hours ago. Like we like during this season, we usually do about two orders from them a month. And one of the things was a flat water tank for one of our customers that's building out a Tacoma with ARB drawers. And so the flat water tank, it's a very skinny, like 2.5-inch tank, but it's, hard to see on camera, but it's like, a long. And
nice and long.
It goes into at the very back, like what we're going to do with his, at least, is it's going to go in the very back or front of the bed.
The front of the bed and go
front of the bed of the truck, right? And then behind it will be the ARB drawers. And then you're good to go, right? You're golden. You got water, you got clean water at all times, and especially for a couple. I mean, 40 liters will go a long way.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great idea. So I know we bounced around a bit, but let's talk about sleeping quarters again. Say if somebody doesn't want to go to a rooftop tent for whatever reason, you guys also carry ground tents from MSR and Gazelle. Yeah. And you're actually the Canadian distributor for them as well, right? From my understanding.
For Gazelle. Yeah. For Gazelle.
Yeah.
MSR,
for Gazelle.
I'll be frank, you can buy at any major camping retailer.
Right.
But we do have a bunch of mech tents in stock that are more car camping focused.
Right.
They're Habitude 6, Habitude 4. And then we also have their remote series, which is their full year round tents. Like their actual like Alpine proper, shove it in a drift type of tent. Tiny, obviously they're much more traditional backpacking style. And then our biggest, not biggest, but like one of our biggest products that sells is the Gazelle. And we love Gazelle tents. If I'm going anywhere and we don't have the camper or whatever, and we just want to take the family SUV or something, I throw a Gazelle inside, and we've got a full gazebo. We've got, I was doing my kid's birthday party back in the summer, and what did I need? I needed a cover. I grabbed a G6, which is their bigger gazebo, throw it in the backyard. Boom, we're all set for the rest of the night. So great units. Like, we're huge fans of Gazelle. We are their Canadian importer. So if you call Gazelle tents themselves and ask for where the heck do I get one, they'll basically send you to us. We ship all over Canada because of that. We want to make sure that everybody has access to them. And basically, sweet unit, super fast setup.
That's exactly what I was going to say. From everything I've seen, the Gazelle tent, whether it be a gazebo or a tent, they're like a minute and a half from all the videos I've seen.
Especially with the tents. The tents are almost foolproof in a way. You go in,
almost.
You pull, and then pop the roof, and you're good to go. The reason I call that out is with the gazebos, it's a little bit more origami to unfold it nicely first, and then it's pop.
Gotcha.
Because the height of the gazebos, they fold in, basically the legs fold in twice. That's what throws people off sometimes. So once you do it the first time, a couple of times, you will get it down to like a 90-second setup, or 2 minutes for a gazebo, definitely 90 seconds for a regular tent, like a T4.
Right.
They do, of course, like everything else in anywhere in life, there's the trade-off, right? So to be able to set up this tent so quickly and to have almost 7 feet of standing height on the inside, or 6.5 feet, and some tents, they do not pack small, right? This is a car tent. This is not your portaging. This is not your backpack tent. This is anywhere from 30 to 50 pound tent, depending on the size. Now they go up to 14 feet long, right? So you sleep really people inside. Yeah.
Wow.
The bigger ones. They have
like a duffel bag size almost. Like the bag's almost like a duffel bag size.
It is a duffel bag that is, in some cases, 65 inches long.
Wow.
Right. So so you do have to have a space to carry it.
Yeah.
Not for small vehicles. They make water resistant carrying bags for that reason, so that you can throw them on the roof and not have to worry about space consumption. But they set up stupid fast, and they're massive, and the fabric is very thick, very heavy. The hubs are all metal, and it's a great unit, and they're constantly evolving their products too. They just released their, call it T-Hex, which is just a massive 7-person tent, and then they released an evolution of their gazebo style, and they try to bring new things out every year or 2 years, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. Are they as much of a pain in the butt to put away as a regular ground tent can be?
The standard tent, I would say, way simpler, 100%.
Yeah.
Because you literally collapse the roof, pop in the four walls, fold it all in. And because of the floor kind of makes sure you can't really get it wrong in how you fold it. You know, with a gazebo, there's no floor. And because of the way the legs fold up,
Right.
that's what, again, throws people off, both on the setup and on the takedown. So once you do it a couple times, that easy. And you just got to remember, just be gentle with the thing. Don't rip it apart. Don't drag it around. Just take a leg, open it up. Take another leg, open it up. And just keep unfolding until you've gone around all 5 or 6 sides. And then you'll start seeing, oh, there's a hub. Okay, pull, done. There's one wall, second wall, third wall. And then from there, you just can't stop, right? You just go, and then done. So same thing on the takedown, just in reverse.
Yeah. And it's like any tent. Once you've done it a couple times, you got to figure it out and go from there, right? So awnings. Listeners to the show know that I love my awning. It's probably one of the best purchases I've made. And so whether, I bought it from Kakadu out in BC, and they don't carry them anymore. And I can't remember the brand name. It's from Australia. But it's been good to me for the last 4 years or so.
Nice.
And I've had it on the Xterra and on the Tacoma and that. But I love that, even on hot days, it gives you some shade. And then, during the rain, and it was funny, my ex, she's like, this is a stupid idea. It looks goofy up there, right? And then we had a little sprinkle of rain when we're camping, and we sat underneath the awning and had dinner while it was just raining. And she's like, this is actually not a bad idea.
This is amazing. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it is by far, especially out in BC, we do have a lot of open areas with the grasslands and the desert areas and that too, right? So we get a lot of heat, a lot of sunshine here. So it's really nice, even if you're stopping for lunch, just to pop the awning out and sit under the awning and go from there. Yeah. So you guys carry a few different awnings as well too. I assume that's something in your realm.
Yeah,
as well.
Pretty big item. I mean, most folks usually start with a rooftop tent, and then their next purchase is an awning. Essentially, that's usually how it goes. Natural progression makes sense. Some folks just go to an awning, right?
Yep.
And we also sell rooms for the awning, so you could literally sleep inside of the thing, right?
Yeah.
Like I would separate them as, let's say, 3 types, right? So one would be your traditional 180, the straight awning, which is everybody's used to. You see that, you see the little bag, the drum that's 6 or 8 feet long on the side of the truck. Unzip, roll it out. It's just a flat sheet, 2 telescopic rods going down to the ground, 2 telescopic rods holding it out flat.
That's way mine is.
Exactly, right? And that's what I've had for years myself. And kind of fairly not much to figure out in the setup process, but it does take, a couple of minutes just because of the rods and the way you got to set it all up, right? It helps to have a second pair of hands.
I was going to say, it's not easy doing it by yourself. You can do it, but it's, I'm sure people watched me in the campsite kind of laughing at me trying to set mine up.
Oh yeah. No, we've got some tricks to it because we demo them. And, so a lot of the times you got to demo a product yourself, right? Because somebody else is working with another customer. So you learn how to single-handedly open them up. It's not as fun. But yeah, so there's the original straight awnings.
Yeah.
And most of the companies nowadays do offer rooms for these straight awnings, right? For these 180 awnings. They're range from just being a mosquito room like a gazebo, which is what Thule used to do and Thule does. Very popular seller. Because it's a couple $100 for the room, and now you're in a awning that is a full gazebo. You don't have to open up your rooftop tent. You're just set for the night to have your dinner, like you said, right? Then we carry ARB, right? So ARB awnings come with a floor, right? So you're actually fully enclosed, right?
Yep.
Now the fabric is a little on the thinner end. It's more of like a traditional style tent where it's like a polyester, much thinner, but it does give you walls that will protect you from rain. Tree line does everything heavy duty, right? That's what they do. So their awning room is the same canvas as their tents. It is a heavy room. But it is a full heavy duty room. And then, so let's say the first style of awning is that 180, just straight shot. Then nowadays, the most recent thing that started happening is 180s that open up kind of like that. Right?
Yes.
And essentially gives you tons of coverage, keeps it all on one side of the truck, oftentimes freestanding. So you don't actually have support poles to pull out. Those
Yep.
are starting to become a more common sight nowadays as well. And then there's the in between, which would be, and the reason I say in between is because it kind of came out in between the 270 awning, right?
Yep.
So we sell AluCab, we sell Quick Pitch, we sell, if people want overland vehicle systems, we can source that as well. But we're personally fans, of the AluCab's setup and is basically, or Rhino Rack, for example, we've got those two,
Right.
right? But basically,
Yep.
270 awning opens up all the way around to the back of to the other side of your bed, essentially, or your tailgate or your truck door or
Yep.
SUV door or whatever.
Exactly.
These awnings are heavy. I will give a warning. Like if you go with a Rhino Rack one, they made one of the originals, I think, and theirs was fairly light, but it is more traditional in the sense you got to put out all the poles, right?
Right.
Which means setup time is similar to your, standard 180. With the AluCab one, you unzip the zipper, like let go of a couple of straps, and then just take the awning, walk with it all the way around, clip it in. You're done. That's it. Your awning is ready to go. It'll literally a 20 to 30-second setup, which is insane, and they're fully freestanding too. So,
and I think those are, I've been looking at those, and they really interest me. It's just so easy to set up, and that's probably the biggest downfall of my 180. As we mentioned before, trying to do it by yourself. But those 270s are really, really neat for sure. I do. If people, are looking at a 180, I definitely would recommend going and getting the awning, or not the awning, but the room. It's something that I found. I didn't really think about it too much over the last couple of years, but we went camping at the end of November, early December, and it was snowing and stuff like that. So we actually ended up putting tarps around the awning, and then brought in a propane fire pit, and it actually kept us super warm. It was actually, we couldn't believe how warm, like we were undoing our jackets, and it was, really nice and warm. So it's definitely a good option, if people are going to that 180 to look at spending a little bit extra and go with the room. And you don't always have to bring it with you, or you don't always have to put it up, right? Exactly. So but the 270 is definitely really interesting to me. So it's a lot more expensive, but I think going with that simpler ease of putting it out there, and especially if you can put it over your tailgate. I mean, a lot of people use their tailgate for cooking and stuff like that, right? So that definitely an interesting idea. So you guys carry a lot of other items that make the camping experience a little more enjoyable. Like, we talked about the Planner diesel heaters, and you also sell the portable fire pits and Claymore lighting. That's another really neat brand. Good quality,
really good lights. Yeah, I honestly, like being fully honest and frank. When I first saw them, I was balking at the price. Obviously, right? I mean, $175 for a light. Hard pill to swallow. But I still bought a few. Obviously, I needed to try them for the shop, and we have this one. The one I'm referring to is called the Ultra 2 3.0, and it's a cube like this, right? 5,000 milliamp battery inside, lithium, USB-C recharge, like very water resistant. You can leave it hanging in the rain, no problem. And the original unit that I got to be our sampler a couple of years ago, it's been our shop light. It's been beaten to hell. It's been thrown around underneath the trucks. It's been to every show, every campsite, and this sucker just won't stop going, right? And I've bought so many other like working lights for around the store, for around the garage,
around the shop,
in the workshop, and they've all died, and their batteries can't keep up. But this thing just goes all the time, and we use it at every job. And whenever we take it out, these things are stupid bright. I like literally when I show people how to demo it to them, I'm like, okay, you look to the ceiling while I point this down, and then I'll turn it on maximum brightness, because that thing is bright. And leaving it on lowest setting, let's say you imagine a gazebo, or like the G6 Gazelle we were talking about. I could hang it up in the ceiling, lowest setting, it'll fully illuminate the whole gazebo. And on that lowest setting, we've had them run for, 60 something hours.
Wow.
It was insane. It was like just over 3 days that we had this thing running on low without being turned off. No recharge. Right.
That's awesome. That's
wild, right?
Yeah, and that's incredible.
Yeah, great lights.
Yeah. No, that's good. And that, like I say, that is one thing I do like about you guys. You guys are, using the equipment, and I think you have to, in order to be able to recommend, a product to a customer. So whether they come in looking for some lights or whether they come in looking for a tent or whatever, the fact that you guys are using them and know the pros and cons, because there's nothing out there that's absolutely perfect. There's a lot of things that are close, like the Claymore lights. But there's it's good to know the ins and outs of the different products. Now, you mentioned you've done a lot of trips, and you mentioned Tuck. Is that one that you've done yourself?
Yes.
Up to Tucktoyakka?
I did. And
how was that? 2018. Okay.
Yeah. It was literally just the year after they had opened the road.
Yeah.
So it was still quite new. Funny enough, like I think the people in the village itself were not really used to seeing visitors yet. Probably more of a nuisance than anything.
Yeah.
So one of my guys, Matt, just sent me an Instagram a few hours ago tonight, and it was from Yukon Travel as the account, and it's a video of how do you reintegrate back into normal life after having done a trip to the Yukon. I swear to God, it is mind changing. It is truly life changing going to the Yukon. And I don't know what it is about the territory itself. It's just it's gorgeous. It's it's isolated, but yet there's people, and you see just immense beauty in the whole territory anywhere you go, whether you're into mountains or forests or just barren wasteland or whatever the heck you want to get into. It is gorgeous. It is such a beautiful place. And we, of course, we went through Yukon, we went into Northwest Territories because Tuck is actually up there. And we ended up staying in Inuvik for a night, and then did a day trip out because at the time there wasn't really anywhere to properly camp in Tuck, right? There's not. It truly is a working village, right? That's all it was at the time.
It's very much a working village. They're doing a little bit more tourism now, but it's still very much it's there for a reason.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
So it's on my list, and it won't be this year, but I'm thinking within the next couple of years, I want to do it. That's a long haul from Ontario.
It is, man. It is. We did it in 25 days. We did it in 25 days there and back from Toronto. And the wife was 3 months pregnant when we left.
Wow.
Literally right after the ultrasound, we were like, let's go.
Let's do this while we can.
Let's do this while we can. Yeah. And, honestly, mind-changing trip. Canada is such a gorgeous country. And I tell people
it is.
COVID was the year, when COVID originally happened, was the year that people rediscovered Canada.
Yeah.
Truly. And it's a beautiful place.
Yeah, it's funny. A lot of people, say, hey, let's, you should go down to Moab or, go down to Colorado. And I'm like, I can't even get out of my own province, for crying out loud, because I'm spending all my weekends exploring my own province. And we're so lucky. Now, I make fun of Saskatchewan sometimes, but Saskatchewan can be very beautiful as well.
Yeah.
It's, even the prairies can be beautiful, and in northern Saskatchewan is absolutely gorgeous, and lots of great fishing up there. And as I mentioned earlier, I spend a lot of time in Ontario, and, we go over in the fall time, go to Quebec and, Labrador and that in the fall time is just absolutely gorgeous. Right. So if I could do traveling full time, I spend all my time traveling across Canada and back and forth.
There's so much to find. It's wild and truly wild, actually. Literally speaking, it truly is.
Yeah,
wild.
For sure. Yeah,
but so that Tuck trip, fantastic trip. We did it out there 25 days. It was honestly 25 days pushing because we also did Alaska. And so we were doing legit. I believe the math was we did 18 days of hard driving where it was 900 kilometers a day. So that's a lot of driving. And we spent, at the time, it was whatever the fuel cost was, but we spent $5,500 on fuel for that trip.
Yeah.
We did 4 hotel nights to just refresh because we didn't have our fancy shower systems at the time.
Well, it's nice to have a shot. I would probably do that, if I was out doing more traveling, I'd spend one night a week in a hotel for sure. You want to have that nice hot shower, and you want to sit down, have a good meal, and you just want to, lie on a, not that, yeah, exactly. Right. So you just want to relax and chill for a sec, but have that nice hot shower. And I totally get it. Yeah, I would do
Oh,
it once a week for sure.
yeah, that's exactly the guideline that like my wife and I go by as well. And yeah, that trip was amazing, just beautiful everywhere. Fun, was super fun. And then when I was referencing Matt earlier, he actually just did it in the summer. He took 2 months and
Nice.
just he came back different, right? And you get a different outlook on life, honestly,
Yeah.
when you see the greater scheme of things with how vast everything is and how beautiful it can be. And you meet all these different people. And honestly, the Yukon was like fantastic people. And the folks there are
I've
just
heard
so
that.
chill and laid back. And it was so funny how many people we met there that were from Toronto or from the GTA. And they're like, oh yeah, I moved out here 30 years ago. I never went back. Or like, I was a nurse in Toronto and I came here with my boyfriend for a couple of weeks and then I just didn't go back. And I'm like, what? And that was a common theme. And then Matt went
Yeah.
there last summer, same thing, right? So many transplants, right? Of folks that just said, I just want to have a more chill way of life.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you see that in, the Yukon and Northwest Territories, but, all through that northern BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, and, even northern Ontario as well, right? It's something about it mystifying. And that's definitely on my list for sure. So I got to do it. So
happy to talk pointers anytime. Definitely. I'll get Matt to give you some as well. They're more recent,
Yeah. Well, last week or week before, whatever, is when we were talking originally, you mentioned about maybe having some of the guys from the shop on as well and do a little roundtable. And I definitely think that would be a really good idea. And because you guys are all explorers and adventure people, I think it'd be really good to have a Red Bear night and get somebody to put a little roundtable.
Honestly, yeah, I would love it.
Yeah.
And I think I did bring up the idea to the guys, and they're down for it too, especially if we can sit in a little circle and not focus on one person. But no, they're down for it, and maybe we can do it at the shop itself and just kind of broadcast from there. And
that's a great idea. Yeah. Yeah, and it's neat to have some different opinions as well, too, right? So that's one.
Different. Totally, right? Like,
well, you guys.
I was just telling you about Henry, right? And Henry's like, you were saying old school. He's old school style, and the guy does traditional and bare bones. But he's got this if you saw the Sportsman clips, is that little Defender Series 3?
Yes.
The Land Rover Series 3, sorry.
Yeah.
That, that's his truck that's been all over North America, including Mexico, right? And it's awesome, but totally different style of overland, totally different style of camp, versus what I do, right? Versus for me, it's nowadays, it's really like, I get out and backpack every once in a while, and I do that more to just test myself and remind myself that I can still do it. So I actually purposefully do it harder and, more painful than it should be. But the majority of my camps are with this full setup with a freaking Nespresso machine, man. Right?
Compared to him, right?
Matt's kind of somewhere in between,
And everybody's has different experiences, and that gives them a different, outlook on life and overlanding and all that. So the overlanding thing, as much as I'd like to sometimes mock it and call it, car camping or truck camping.
It's what it is at the end of the day. We just
it is
a buzzword.
Yeah, I mean, I used to do it when I was a kid in the 70s, right? But
exactly,
I just kind of make fun of people, but it's interesting how it's really evolved in the last 5 years or so. And especially since COVID came, I think we've seen a huge increase with people getting out. And you mentioned it earlier, people are getting out and exploring more and
in their own backyard. Yeah,
exactly. So, I have lots of people that would rather go to Cuba or, a resort in Mexico. And I'm like, I don't know, man, I'd rather spend a week in the mountains in the Rocky Mountains in BC. So, but we've definitely seen a huge, not a shift, but a huge increase in overlanding or the truck camping world. And what do you think? Is it here to stay? Or is it just another fad? For your sake, I hope so.
From a business perspective, I freaking hope so. I know to the point you made of like it. We don't throw around the word overland too much, honestly. Like you'll find even on our website, everything it says camping. Right? Yeah, and because I believe that it truly is. You're camping with a vehicle. When people ask us what our shop's about, it's vehicle-based adventure, right? Because it. To different people, overlanding means different things, right? It could be that to me, overland might mean that I have to go 6,000 kilometers in one direction and get
Right.
there, right? To others, not an example of me, actually. Like, I personally believe that if you go 100 kilometers away, and so long as you're exploring something different that you haven't been to before, that's it, man. I don't care about the definition. I don't care about what you're going to call
Yep.
it. Get out there, have fun, go take your family,
Exactly.
go by yourself and have that recharge weekend and spend one night. Hell, sometimes that's all it takes, right?
Yep.
Get out into nature and go out and explore a little bit. That's all it gets down to. And
Yep.
I really hope it does stick around, obviously, the whole trend, because it's become so much more mainstream. I mean, at the very least, we should get another 10 years out of it or something before flying into Europe becomes popular again, right? And we're hopping to Mexico for the weekend on an airplane instead of in your Series 3 Defender, right? So I hope it does stick around. And I think we've seen that it's become much more mainstream in the sense that a lot more folks that never used to think about it are now coming out to us and saying, oh, I want to do a rooftop tent. We've seen people that had RVs downsize to rooftop tents. That, like, a bunch of our customers have done that, right? And it's becoming more normalized. It's becoming more standardized across the industry, I think, and across the regular person, right? Somebody that lives in the city, somebody that lives in a suburb. They're not looking to go to Alaska and explore the West Coast, right?
Yeah.
They just want to go out and camp comfortably. That's it.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, like I say, I don't care what you call it. You can call it whatever you want. You can call it overlanding, you can call it truck camping, car camping, wheeling and camping, whatever you want to call it, whatever makes you happy. I don't really care, right? I agree that, getting people out there and, enjoying. And if you just want to go a half hour out of town and camp with your rooftop tent and call it overlanding, so be it. Whatever, right? But like you say, it's about getting people out there and definitely more mainstream. Like, I remember camping at, say, a rec site with my TJ, and I had a rooftop tent on, and people will be always coming over. What's that? What's that? What's that? And now you pull in and there's like 4 of them there or 5 of them there, So it's definitely a lot more mainstream and a lot more, you just see a lot of it, everywhere. And I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing for the 4-wheel drive industry and the camping industry and just getting 100%. People out there. Right. So I think it's a good thing. So
I agree with you fully.
So of course people can see you at the shop as well. And they can find the hours and the address on the website now, but you've also got a lot of shows on the go. You guys just had a show last weekend at the International Center that I think was, from everything I saw and from everybody posting on Instagram and that, it was a very popular show and everybody seemed to really enjoy themselves. What else you got going on this summer? Where else can people see you this summer if we're not at the shop?
Yeah, so next up will be Hefner Toyota. Actually, they're doing like their dealership, and they're running a kind of a community event essentially. So we're going to be there showcasing our stuff as well. They invited us over and doing a little talk about camping essentially, and just a quick little presentation thing. But really, it's just we're going to bring out an Alucab, we're going to bring out a rooftop tent, we're going to bring out the Eco Nest Box, right? Because it fits so nicely in a RAV4.
That's one thing we forgot to talk about, and we'll talk about that in a second. But let's talk about some of the events coming up first.
Yeah, so that one's April 1st. Then after that, we usually, and I say usually because I love bringing attention to this event, Roaming Rally. It is such a fantastically fun event. A guy named Ted has been running it for years, and it's not every single year that he does it because it's truly a work of love kind of thing where he's not doing it for commercial reasons or making money off of it at all. But he just organizes a fun overlanding event where there's rules or whatever to it. Really, it's just, here's a recommended route. Here's where we're supposed to be at the end of the night. I'll see you all there.
Right.
Make sure your truck's okay, to be able to do it.
Yeah.
And it's really fun and it's super laid back. And if you want to get a good introduction to it, to the lifestyle, to the hobby, everybody there is super supportive. And I've seen people and been part of it myself where like we've spent hours upon hours or a whole day on recovering somebody that decided to veer off on a water crossing. Like last year we had it. A guy was right behind me on a water crossing, ended up dropping his Jeep into the deep end. And I'm literally just, because my truck's already out, I'm running right through this water to pull a winch line onto him, just soaked completely, but it doesn't matter, trying to help him.
You're having fun, right? That's what it's all about.
That's it, right? And trying to make sure he gets out before the engine floods, right? But yeah, no, it's just super fun event. Unfortunately, not this year, but keep an eye on it. Roaming Rally, also known by graveltravel.ca. Tons of
Yep.
resourceful information on his website. Great routes all across Canada. I mean, this guy knows Canada like the back of his hand.
And I was going to say, he doesn't do just events in Ontario. He had one in the Alberta side of the Rockies as well a couple of years. And I think he did one that ventured into BC as well a couple of years ago too. So
did,
definitely,
one over the coming at some point when maybe next year.
Yeah.
So keep an eye on that.
Cool.
Yeah. So just wanted to name drop that. Then June would be Overland North. So they're kind of, the up and coming community group out here. They've really, hit it off well with running a lot of different events. So I think June is their biggest event, Albion Hills. So just outside of Toronto, about 45 minutes north or northwest. And so we'll be out there, it's kind of a camp out weekend with a lot of vendors and hopefully a lot of day visitors. So please come out and, see what people have to offer from this hobby and what people are selling or doing.
Yeah. We had them on the show, I don't know, a month ago, something like that. Yeah. 2 months ago, maybe.
Nice.
And they mentioned that they were doing the day tickets, which is something they haven't done before, and which I thought was a great idea because not everybody can maybe manage a full weekend or they have to work one day or something like that. So if you can't make it, I highly recommend their events. Everything I've heard about them have been absolutely wonderful. The Overland North crew, but if you can't make it for a full weekend, just grab the day passes because, like I say, there's a lot of good people, a lot of good vendors, and of course, Red Bear Outdoors will be there too. So
exactly, and lots of fridges full of beer.
There we go.
We have some fans with various brewing companies, so we always bring out a lot of beer, and juice and pops for everybody else that doesn't drink. Of course, we everything. We just try to be inclusive. And in terms of other events, later in June is usually the Wellington Motors. So another dealership. This is a Jeep dealership instead of Toyota. They've been inviting us for the last few years to come out and show what we've got. And a lot of the off-road community knows us because of that Jeep event. So super fun event that they put on there. They do like a full car crush, where the Jeeps are crawling over. And I mean, you're looking at like 100 rock crawlers showing up at a single dealership. Teeter-totters, all kinds of stuff. Super fun event. Cool. Family friendly. And it's usually just a Saturday kind of thing, right? And then after that, Canada Jeep Show, I think that's in August, I want to say.
I think so, yeah.
I'll have to double check. But so we're signed off to that. We're going to have a nice big booth, like one of the main booths there. And really excited for that as well. We've got September will be Overland North again, but this time the one that's up in Huntsville. So about 3 hours north of Toronto and, closer to Ottawa if you're from out that way. So fun event. Just less about the sales, more about the just flat out camping, even for us. Right. And really, it's just they set it up on an abandoned landing strip as part of Deerhurst Resort and just camp out and have a fun 2 or 3 days, And then, I think that wraps up all the ones that I know about so far. We'll see.
And the other thing too is, people can. I highly recommend people checking out your Instagram and your Facebook pages at Red Bear Outdoor. And of course, you guys are going to be posting up, upcoming events if you're hitting somewhere, like the Toyota dealership. I saw that on there today or yesterday. You mentioned it, and so definitely follow the guys at Red Bear Outdoors and on Instagram and Facebook, because it's not just about them promoting their products they sell. It's about promoting other events that you go to, and that's well too. So the last question I ask every guest is, what Canadian would you like to listen to on the 4x4 Canada podcast?
Oh, man. Which Canadian I want to hear on? Have you done Jim Baird yet?
I have not.
Okay.
And actually, you know what? He's not even on my list. So that's perfect.
By him. I'm not making a mockery of it. It's just honestly, like, guy's a legend. So it was super cool seeing him at our shop. He bought a Thule tent and a rooftop tent. And the dude knows the outdoors. You should totally get Jim Baird on the phone and have an interview with him. I think he's got tons of stories. I mean, just watching his videos alone, just super fun adventures that he does.
Great storyteller too.
No, he knows
definitely
how to have a proper storytelling conversation.
Exactly. No, that's a great idea, and that's actually one I didn't have on my list. So that's perfect. So
awesome. Work out. Tell him that Bear
Exactly.
sent them. No, or
I
send
will.
it.
I'll name drop you guys for sure. So,
Please
so
do. Yeah.
once again, we're talking to Mike from Red Bear Outdoors and a camping store and truck camping store in Toronto. And again, you can check them out at redbearoutdoors.ca and of course Red Bear Outdoors on Instagram and Facebook. I really want to thank you for coming on. It ended up being a bit longer than I expected, but it was all great conversation and there's some learning in there for me. And, you're definitely a wealth of knowledge. And I think our listeners are really going to enjoy this conversation. So once again, Mike, I really appreciate you coming on board. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Wes. It was a pleasure. I hope to have another chat again soon.
Oh yeah, we'll get you on soon with the other guys. We'll have a little round table and get some discussions going on about the pros and cons of different things.